Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. This is going to be a rough one because I have a fever and a lot of congestion and I've been having migraines the last couple days, but MetaZoo folded. So I made a video about 6 weeks ago maybe about the network value theory of TCG investing. And since I'm not one to typically take victory laps about things I predicted, instead I'm going to try to turn this into a teachable moment. See, I'm not exactly in the right state of mind. So, oh boy, what did I say 6 weeks ago about all this stuff? I said that in the network value theory of TCG investing, basically we say that, we have the company that makes the product. Oh yeah, that's WotC. We have distributors. We have card stores. Yep, have a lot of those. And then you have all the players, and the players are kind of divided up in some sense between players and collectors and investors. And this forms an ecosystem around a game. And the main idea of network value theory of TCG investing is that if you want to one day pull money out of these sealed products or out of singles or out of anything else within this ecosystem, you need all parts of this ecosystem to at least be reasonably healthy. And so when we look at something like Magic, of course, Magic absolutely nails it on the player side. There are still a lot of collectors in Magic. There are people who still put together complete sets of every new release. I know some of them. There are a good amount of investors in Magic. Every distributor in the US supports Magic. Every card store in the US supports Magic. And WotC, for all the dysfunction of the last couple years, is still a behemoth with huge amounts of money and talent and valuable IP at its disposal. So Magic's network is very valuable because all of these things function very well. Now, in November, my Patreon newsletter talked about all these new games that have come out, and with them, I lumped MetaZoo. And the reason I did is because MetaZoo is still kind of qualified as a new-ish game at the time. And I also talked about One Piece, Lorcana, Sorcery, and then some of the more, or I guess we'd say the less popular games, the more unpopular games, the less popular games like Weiss and Force of Will. And there's specific challenges that each of those games faces within this model of network value theory. And one of the things I pointed out about a lot of those games is they have virtually no players. And that's a really big problem long term for a TCG, because the main place that you're going to get money into this network is from players. Yes, collectors will put some money in, but most games, with the exception of Pokemon, have fewer collectors than players, and most games have way fewer investors than players. But MetaZoo had a problem, and the problem was it was released in the summer of 2021, and it was always about this group. This was always the most powerful group. It was never hailed as a great, well-designed, fun game to play. They didn't have, they had some kind of big event for $250,000 in Dallas in 2022. But beyond that, I couldn't find anything about World Championships, certainly not like Flesh and Blood does, where they just have ongoing calling events all over the world. So it didn't support professional play. MetaZoo didn't. And it had some collectors because, yeah, some people really dug the art style. But for the most part, it had way more participation here than it did here. And I drew the sales funnel there, and that's something I've not talked about on the channel, I don't think at all. But something I want to introduce, and in business we talk about sales funnels typically when you're trying to sell very, very expensive things like fleets of aircraft. And so you'll have buyers, potential buyers, and they're up here at the top of the funnel and they're milling around. They're like, yeah, we might want that. And as they get more sure about making a purchase, they fall down further into the funnel until they fall out the bottom and they've made the purchase. And we can kind of think of a similar analogy here, which is, what do you want to do as a TCG investor? Why are you subscribed to this channel? Because you want to make money. Okay, make money. And that's That's what you want to get out of all of this. What do you need higher up in the funnel for you to make money? You need a healthy network, right? Because if you don't have a healthy network, then there's no money coming into this for you to extract a little bit out of. Okay, what do you need for a healthy network? Well, fundamentally, you have got to have players, because players is where most of the money comes into these games. It's very hard for the games to survive without very, very strong play networks. Okay, so you need players. Okay, what do you need to get players? Well, you need a couple different things. One is pro play. That would help. That's something, like I said, Flesh and Blood has been incredibly good at doing, is nurturing the pro play worldwide with its game. That's why it's growing so well. That's why I'm so bullish on Flesh and Blood for the future. What do you need for good pro play? Well, you need good management from the company that creates the games. I'll just say creators. And what I mean by creators there is not idiots like me on YouTube. It's WotC in the case of Magic. It's LSS in the case of Flesh and Blood. It's, what's his name? Mike Waddell in the case of MetaZoo. So you need all these things in place for you to eventually make money. And that's something I warned about in my newsletter in November, was that all of these other newer and speculative games like One Piece and Lorcana and everything, they have yet to prove they can make it down this funnel. And that's why they are so speculative and risky. And so, in the case of Lorcana with the, first chapter, or whatever they called it, at one point the cards were $1.25 per card if you bought booster boxes, because the boxes had gone up in price so high. It had gotten so bad that a lot of stores whose allocations for the second release of Lorcana were dependent on how many events they held, could not hold events because people couldn't buy the cards because they were too expensive, or you just flat couldn't get them. And so it had failed on this test on the first expansion. Now, obviously, they have Disney behind them. They got lots of money to piss away, and they have time to fix the ship. So something I did in a follow-up to the original network value theory of TCG investing video, I made a follow-up video with a couple good comments. And I remember Dan had the comment that you need to be out there nurturing your network of the game that you love. So if you think sorcery is the next thing, you needed to be out there making this work. You needed to be, and this is really the one where you can do the most. If you love sorcery, you think it's the best new game, you think it's going to unseat Magic and all of that, you need to be out there starting a YouTube channel, solving the meta, posting play videos, doing whatever you can to get players in here so that your speculative positions in sealed boxes will one day benefit from those players creating a healthy network that money flows into, which thus one day allows you to make money off of it. And so this was something that MetaZoo was never able to do because it was kind of in that stonk bro era of 2021 where, hey, look, it's a new game, and people were just off of seeing Flesh and Blood come out in late 2019. And, Flesh and Blood alpha boxes, they're like $5,000 today or something, $4,000 or $5,000. So you would have 100 extra money on Flesh and Blood alpha boxes. And so even back in that era of, mid to late 2021, when MetaZoo was new, fab boxes were just incredible. And so people were seeing that, and they were seeing this new game, and they were saying, oh, well, it's got this great art style, it looks like old Pokemon used to look, and all this stuff. And it mostly attracted in these people. And yeah, that's who we are. But you need to be cognizant of what else in the network is going to support the game. And that's why, I owned absolutely zero MetaZoo. I own zero Lorcana. I own zero One Piece. I own zero Weiss. I own zero Force of Will. I have 2 boxes of Sorcery Alpha that I bought through the Kickstarter. That's all I've got of that. I stick to Magic, to Pokemon, and to Flesh and Blood. And the reasons are, like I highlighted earlier, Magic's network is the strongest one in the world. Pokemon's is the second strongest because it has so many collectors. People are nuts for Pokemon. They just rip packs just absolutely not even thinking about how much money they're throwing away, just ripping packs, looking for cards to fill out their binders with. They're nuts. And Pokemon has done a good job in the last couple of years of finally really starting to nurture organized play better. And I looked out before I started recording this video tonight, I looked out on MetaZoo's website at their listed events where card stores could register on the website and post up events they were going to hold for MetaZoo. And out through the next 2 months, they had 12 events listed in all of the US. There were only 12 events at card stores where the store had bothered to go post it up on MetaZoo's website. Now, I'm sure that, there were more informal events and things like that at local stores that weren't posted up on MetaZoo's website, but it's a really bad indicator when there were only 12 events over the next 2 months, and that was sorting out to unlimited time into the future. It just happened no one posted any more than 2 months out ahead in time, and there were only 12 events. And so MetaZoo utterly failed here. It failed on attracting players. And it failed to attract players because the pro play was weak, because the people creating the company really didn't seem to understand the necessity of nurturing pro play. I suspect, and maybe people will agree with me, maybe not, but my suspicion is Mike Waddell and his other guys running the company, they thought they could live off of that. They thought they could live off of collectors. And maybe they could have got into that one day, but when you're surviving as MetaZoo did for 2.5 years off of investors, and then interest rates go to 5.5%? Well, investor bros don't have as much money to spend on this stuff then when interest rates go crazy. So they stop buying as much. So the company folds because it doesn't have that support of players and pro events and the collectors and everyone else helping to backstop it. So it's unfortunate. I don't know what I think about the odds of more games failing. It was interesting. I went back and I reread my November patron newsletter, and in it I actually said that I would not be surprised to see one of those games I talked about in that newsletter fail. And now here we are nearly 2 months later and one of them has failed. Will another one fail? I don't know. I don't try to predict the future. I try to make the best possible decision with information that's available at any moment. But that's a far cry from trying to positively predict the future. I think Sorcery's got a tough road to take because it is yet another high fantasy card game that's coming into the market very late in a cycle. And, the gameplay is kind of novel with the whole, spread out and make the map, like the old Star Wars game used to be back in the 90s. That's kind of cool. One Piece, will it make it through the initial hype and really be able to nurture that pro play? This is an absolute requirement. And for me to invest anything more than a small speculative position in a game, you have got to show that you have a plan and you're executing on competent pro play. So, it's yet to be seen if Lorcana will do that. Will Lorcana have worldwide championships that actually get people interested and keep the funnel of players going so that in the long term, the network is healthy and you can make money off of it? Yet to be seen. So keep those things in mind, and let me know what you think, guys. I think that's about all I have to say about that. Unfortunate, but yeah, that's it. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my generous supporters on Patreon who bought this wonderful whiteboard for me. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Join the Patreon.